Welcome back to our channel, where we explore the most fascinating stories around the world. Taking a look at some cases where the suspect knew more than the detectives trying to get a confession. In most police interrogations, the detectives have the advantage of experience and understanding of the law, but sometimes these same detectives meet their match. A suspect who knows how the interrogation process works can often outwit the most seasoned detective. Jeff Pearson, a clip of a street Georgia addict holding his own against police manipulation, shows how easily the law can force a false confession.
Am I under arrest?
For now.
I'm under arrest?
Yeah, I'll explain everything, but before I explain myself to you, before we talk to each other, I need to read your rights, okay?
What am I under arrest for?
Well, like I said, I need to read your rights first. Obviously, the charge is robbery.
While most police are honest and noble, the history of policing is littered with examples of cops using their authority to rig the system against citizens, whether it's in the killing of an innocent person like Breonna Taylor, or the multitude of cases exposing corrupt cops.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can will be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we question you. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer and you want one, a lawyer will be provided for you. If you decide to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you'll still have the right to stop answering questions at any time. Does that make sense? You've probably heard these before, haven't you?
Almost every police encounter starts with an initial encounter. Whether the suspect has a warrant, the police respond to a call, or observe a person engaged in suspected criminal activity, that initial encounter may lead to a person being arrested. For those who end up in handcuffs in the back of a cruiser, an arguably bigger gauntlet awaits them at the police station. There, suspects are often taken to the confines of a cold room the size of a medium-sized supply closet. This is known as the interrogation room. For the police, this room serves one purpose, and it's to get the suspect to confess to the crime they're investigating. To get that confession, detectives use a number of techniques, including lying about evidence to see how the suspect reacts, and also subjecting suspects to countless hours of repetitive, accusatory questioning.
Do you understand your rights? Do you understand your rights, Jeff? Yes or no? You understand?
We're getting paid more than you are, so we can sit here for a long time, man.
I just need you to answer me yes or no. Do you understand your rights? Let's get through that question. Do you understand what I read you? Do you comprehend what I read you?
It's no wonder that over the years there have been quite a few false confessions. There have been multiple cases where suspects have confessed to crimes only to later be exonerated due to DNA evidence. Critics say the techniques used in interrogations disproportionately affect lower income and people who suffer from mental illness, as they are unsure of their rights and lack access to adequate legal advice. And much of the problem remains opaque to the public, because some law enforcement agencies don't record interrogations or provide transparent access to footage.
If you got something that says you didn't do this robbery, this is your chance to talk to us.
Okay, good cop.
No, usually I'm the prick.
You look like the prick.
I am.
Against these odds stands an unlikely hero, a wiry young man the internet knows simply as Jeff. His legend started nearly a decade ago with the uploading of some low-res interrogation footage onto YouTube. What we know about Jeff is this. At the time of the interrogation, he is a resident of Georgia, charged with armed robbery and facing a 10-year minimum sentence if found guilty. He's been through the judicial system multiple times over the years thanks to a heroin addiction. And it's clear from the beginning of the footage that Jeff isn't there to play games. He is clear that the robbery charge is the result of him getting unfairly arrested at his friend's house. He's even clearer that he won't talk to the police.
I'm not asking if you want to talk to me at this point. I just want to know, do you understand what I read to you?
So am I under arrest?
Yes, you're under arrest.
Get me back to the cell. I don't talk.
Okay.
The first words out of his mouth in the video couldn't be more blunt. "So, am I under arrest?" Jeff asks. The officer replies yes. "Okay, then get me back to the cell," he responds. "I don't talk to you." Instead of complying with his lawful request to remain silent and a lawyer, the police continue to bring him back into that interrogation room over the next 8 hours. What unfolds is a revealing look into how everyday cops attempt to pressure people into divulging information that might entrap them, whether it's a timeline of events or some vague implication they were involved in wrongdoing. More curiously, it's a masterclass in how to avoid incriminating yourself, even when facing an intimidating charge and sentence.
You wanted a Coke?
Yeah.
You gonna be able to pop it open, or you need me to?
I need methadone.
Need methadone?
Yeah, you guys can get me that methadone.
I don't have any. Do you have medication for it, or a prescription for it? Or?
No.
What do you need methadone for?
Cause I'm a fucking junkie, and you guys, I can't get no methadone. I'm gonna go through withdrawal here in a minute.
I first saw this video when it popped up on Reddit last year, but the story of Jeff pops up frequently on the internet, most recently in an analysis by true crime YouTube channel JCS. That video racked up more than 2.5 million views, with fans in the comments section cheering Jeff's ability to outsmart his interrogators, even while visibly suffering from heroin withdrawal symptoms.
You've been using heroin?
Long time, like
10 years? 15 years?
I don't do a lot that long. What are you trying to talk to me about here?
Talk to you about what happened last night. Look, here's the deal. Either you're in a bad set of circumstances, or you went and committed an armed robbery last night.
Yeah, I'm in a shitty, wrong place, wrong time, obviously. I ain't committed no fucking harm.
All right, then let's talk about this. Let's
talk to the police, man.
At one point, he begins vomiting into a trash can. Given his prior record, Jeff knew misspeaking could cause him his freedom long term. But you can also tell in the footage that the cops are keenly aware of both his past. They dangle his parole in front of him, and his weakened state from heroin withdrawal. 2 hours after his first interrogation, Jeff is back, answering the same boilerplate plea from a detective to just tell his side of the story. At this point, Jeff is beyond incredulous, emphasizing that he does want to talk to the cops.
Okay. I've been through the system, buddy. I know how
I know
it
you
works.
have. I know you have.
You're
Jeff.
not my friend.
I'm not your friend.
You're trying to fucking get me. Or you're
No,
trying
I'm not trying to get
all
you.
you're trying to get is some fucking stupid ass fucking confession, and you're not going to get one.
Jeff, I'm not going to get a confession out of you for nothing.
Exactly, because I
And
didn't
I'm
do
not
nothing.
trying to get a confession out of you.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, I didn't commit no armed robbery, and y'all ain't got no fucking evidence saying I did. Let me go. All you did is find me sitting in my buddy's house because my fucking buddy's dog's going ape shit. I go outside. There are cops everywhere, and they spotlight me. They say, "Come here." I say, "What's up?" They search me. They ain't find nothing. What's up?
Let me read this.
No.
Yes.
Because I'm not going to sign it.
You don't have to sign it. But let me read it for you. Okay?
I'm not signing nothing.
You don't have to sign it.
I ain't commit no fucking robbery, and you all don't got no fucking evidence saying I did. All you did was find me sitting at my buddy's house, 'cause my buddy's dog is going apis hit. I go outside, and there are cops everywhere, and they spotlight me, Jeff says in the longest burst of dialogue during the interrogation. The detectives play good cop, placating Jeff with a can of Coke, per his request, every time they force him back into that tiny room for more questions. But it's obvious that they're basically torturing a man who's already feeling sick, at one point even telling Jeff, "We did this twice. We can do it again." Jeff claims he'll talk for another Coke and a Butterfinger. Not long after, the man is back in the interrogation room with another soda and a new detective. This time, Jeff's foe decides to play hardball. "I got a lot of physical evidence," the cop says with a self-satisfied snort. "Like what?" Jeff snaps back. "There's only a few pieces of evidence I'm missing," the cop says. "Name them," Jeff retorts. "Name them." It's not surprising that the cop chooses not to say a single thing in defense of that claim of evidence. At another point, he claims that he can put in a good word with Jeff's parole officer. Meanwhile, the last thing Jeff says in the interrogation is almost as hilarious as it is cutting. "How about that Butterfinger you promised?"
Tell me what happened last night. Plain and simple. Your side of the story.
I'm not talking to you. I'm warning
All right. This is what I don't understand. I know, but this is what I don't understand, Jeff. You were sitting there talking just like you were ready to sit here and tell me what happened last night, and then all of a sudden I read that to you and you screw it, I ain't talking to you. I want a lawyer. I don't understand that. What changed just in the...
Because I told you what, I already told you what happened.
You didn't.
How didn't I?
You didn't tell me what happened last night.
How didn't I just tell you what?
But now you've handcuffed me, and I can't talk to you because you've asked for an attorney. So, okay, that's fine. But I will tell you right now, you're still on a hold for a robbery.
I know. I don't know why. I need a fucking lawyer because obviously I didn't do nothing. And obviously you guys know I didn't do nothing because I've been arrested for the same bullshit before, and you guys don't interview me this much. So, wham bam, thank you for the coke, put me back in the cell. That's my home.
Interviewed you yet.
It's unlikely he received his Butterfinger, but records show he was released 12 hours later from that Georgia police department after withstanding a gauntlet of techniques to try and get him to open up and start admitting things. Part of the love and interest around the myth of Jeff, of course, is that it appears the cops really didn't have anything on him. There are a million reasons why false confessions happen, but the only concrete fact about them is that in America, it happens too often.
Here's what the deal is. I have enough evidence
Like what?
of the armed robbery, okay? But, you know, if you're saying you didn't do it, you need to give me your side of the story.
I didn't do it.
Okay, well, give me your side of the story. You got, convince me. Because I got a lot of evidence. I got a lot of physical evidence.
Well, like what? Name the physical.
Well, I don't need to, why should I tell you that? There's only a couple pieces of evidence I'm missing.
Name them.
What's that?
Name them.
Well, why do I need to do that? You haven't helped me out at all. You give me a little bit, I give you a little bit. We go back and forth. I give you one of my pieces of evidence, and I give me a little something. All right? What time do you get over to Aaron's house?
No, anything I say here can and will be used against me.
Sure, but anything you say here, I can also tell your parole officer that you helped me out.
It doesn't mean.
Many agencies abide by some form of the Reed technique that was developed by former cop and psychologist John E. Reed in the 1950s, after being inspired by a confession he extracted while investigating a man who murdered his wife. But psychological research actually shows that there are a multitude of triggers that can lead someone to admit to a crime they actually never committed. In fact, Reed's own case ended up falling apart after it was overturned because of a false confession. Even today, police-induced false confessions are the leading cause of innocent people ending up behind bars.
I'm done, man. Fuck this. I'm not even answering. All this shit that I just said is gonna be fucking written in the discovery now, right?
What? You haven't said nothing.
I mean, every little stupid thing that you've asked me, dude, is gonna be in the discovery.
I'm not even going to do discovery.
The prosecutor is.
Okay. So, you halfway know the system, how things work, and you halfway don't. Am I right?
I half-ass know
Yeah.
that the only reason I came up here is to get a fucking Coke.
Okay.
And I got it. But now I want a Butterfinger.
But that's not going to happen for a while.
What, the Butterfinger?
Yeah.
Why not?
But if there is one takeaway for the rest of us, it's that the cops will try to break you if they think you're guilty. Jeff may have been just some random person in Georgia, but he didn't fall for these police tactics. He knew the police were looking for a confession, not a solution. And given all the stuff they tried, I can't help but laugh when I think about how he convinced all those cops that he maybe might talk if they just quenched his thirst. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you all liked it. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you will never miss any episode of our enthralling series. We are looking forward to seeing you next time, so stay curious about next video.